All right, I'm here with Bart Sasnett. Bart is an alumni, played here, and then also got his first head coaching job here. He is now at Darton State over in Albany, and he was kind enough to ride over here this afternoon to continue our interview of former alumni, former professors, players, and that kind of stuff, because we're trying to reach back out to the alumni. And of course, Bart's in a unique position as both sides of the ball, being as a player and a coach. And again, he's at Darton State, a powerhouse program over there. Has built a really nice team over there. Had several honors and been in the national tournament a couple of different times as a coach. And so we're delighted that he's come over here to us and given us a little bit of his time to kind of reach back out to guys he played with and guys that he's coached. And so Bart, we appreciate you coming on over.
Absolutely.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your initial and how you got here in the first place as a player, obviously.
I was recruited in 1996 by Coach Bill Carter to come up. I had initially was committed to the University of West Florida, but my grades weren't good enough to get into the clearinghouse. So this was not too far from where I'm from, in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, and came up, tried out, and got a scholarship and played in 96, 97. Came back in 1998 as a student assistant for one semester under Coach Chris Lupins. And then from there went on and played at Tennessee Wesleyan and semi-professional in Knoxville, and then came back as an assistant coach in 2002, 2003, and then became the head men and women's coach in 2004, 2006. So, for me, Andrew College opened up, me as a student athlete and as a professional, opened up the doors for me to get to where I am now. And so that's pretty much how I got started here.
And I think that you mentioned something about what the junior colleges were all started about back in the day was to give kids a chance who couldn't get into a four-year institution, and of course obviously you didn't have to face juniors and seniors, so you were able to come in right away. And obviously you're now over at Darton doing kind of the same kind of a thing, but it was a chance to come in, play, get your feet wet. The college is fairly small, and so you were able to kind of become a college student without having to hit the ground running, I guess.
Right. I think the two-year experience is such a special one because you do get to go out and compete right away. And there was always a preconceived notion that the only reason why somebody came to a junior college is because they had poor grades, which those notions have since gone away.
Correct.
Because the popularity of junior college soccer, there's more programs, so we're getting more kids in with great academics that get Georgia Hope and that would qualify for Florida Bright Futures. So it's those every situation for every student athlete is different, but it's certainly circumstantial. But we've the guys that are doing two-year college soccer now are looking at a broad range of student athletes to come in and compete for them.
Correct, yeah, and you're right about that. The perception may still be out there, but the reality has changed. I know we just had a academic competition on campus, Pitt Scholarship Award, and two athletes won it, which you have to have at least a 3.0 and a high enough SAT just to get in. There was 20 competitors. A women's soccer player won it, and a baseball player won it. And I know when I coached softball back in the day for them 7 years, I had 5 winners on it. So you're right. The reality is not quite the perception is not quite the reality as far as that's concerned. And so consequently, you said who was your first coach? Bill Carter, right? That was 96.
Yep. And Chris Lupins in 97.
Okay, and then that team you said went to what, region finals?
No, we were region semifinalists both those years. But my first year as a head coach, we made it to the region final against Georgia Perimeter.
Okay, yeah, that's what you said.
And they eventually lost in the national championship that year, and we lost 2-1 in the last 2 minutes of the game. So anybody that's played for us, during that time period, they would know that was a rough one to take.
Yeah, I know when I played back long time ago, we played Columbus State. I was at Valdosta State, and they beat us 3 times in the regular season just like a drum. Okay. And then we got to the regional tournament and we won 2 squeakers off them. Ended up winning the national championship, and they still scream and holler to this day, we should have been national champs. My gosh, we pounded you guys. So I can sympathize with the fact that the got to the national championship and you lost the squeaker 2-1. As far as that's concerned, some of the guys you played with, I was asking you earlier about, you played midfield, center mid. And some of your goal scorers, and who are some of the guys that would stand out for you?
We had a Bulgarian guy that was sent to us by Ray Wells from Lindsey Wilson. He sent a guy over, Radostin Baltov, who wound up, I think he wound up scoring like 22 goals and had like 15 or so assists. He was the real deal. And then we had some kids from the Montverde Academy down in Florida, which is a soccer powerhouse. We picked up a couple of guys from Spain that they did very well. Adrian Laurent, he did very well here. Those were kind of some of the standout guys while I was playing here.
Correct.
And myself, I was an all-region player.
Absolutely. Absolutely. To your coaching days, and obviously one of the bigger alumni soccer-wise for us is a fellow who played for you, correct? Joe?
Yeah, Joe Nasco played for me. He was originally recruited by Barry Kaplan, who was my mentor for 2 years here. Joe Nasco came in from Osceola, Florida. Broke his collarbone his first year here. We redshirted him. So we had him 2 full years. He was a Region Player of the Year 1 year. I believe it was 2003. And then he was a 2-time All-American both years. And obviously he was a very high-level player when he came here, but he only developed, he only got better, and he moved on to play at Birmingham Southern and got injured again, broke his leg. So he got another red shirt, and then went on to play in Panama City for the Pirates, where he got injured again, another collarbone. He broke his collarbone here. So the guy had 3 career-ending injuries and still found a way to make the roster in Atlanta as a starting goalkeeper for the Silverbacks. Then he went on to the MLS and started 3 games in 2013 or 14 for the Colorado Rapids. And now he's in Fort Lauderdale playing for the Fort Lauderdale Strikers.
Yeah, I had Joe came back and he worked for 6 or 8 months here in the cross-country program, and then matter of fact, I think he met his wife here at the college, and went back to be a sheriff for a while, and I think he tried out for the Silverbacks, kind of an open tryout kind of thing, and ended up, like you said, in the MLS, and now he's down in Fort Lauderdale. And George is from Fort Lauderdale. George is our cameraman, and of course Bart knows him. And if we can get Joe to come through here, but either way, George is going to go down to Fort Lauderdale and see if we can arrange a time and do a little interview on that again, just to try and reach back to the time when he were here. And obviously, he has done a fantastic job, and obviously he's built like a goalkeeper. I mean, big boy, strong, very fast, very quick, and he obviously had the skill set. And he learned a lot here, I feel certain. But the MLS, I guess, like I said, 30-year-old for a goaltender is not old.
Yeah, it's not old. That's the only position really that in the MLS they wouldn't consider a player to be old if he was playing in the goal, because those guys play into their 40s.
Right.
And it's still not his opportunities and his chances to get back into the first division, the MLS, are not few there. I mean, he's still very open. I mean, he's still competing at a very high level. It's actually a little bit better for him now, I think, too, playing in the NASL, because he's playing every single game.
Really.
And I think that's only going to broaden his horizon as far as making him more marketable for getting back into the MLS.
Correct. One of the questions we asked Jimmy Gill when we did an interview with Mr. Jimmy, and I just called him before we came out here. He's actually working on Sarah Ann Staples' house. So they take care of it, Staples, so he may venture out here. And one of the questions we asked him was, a favorite memory or something, maybe from both your playing days and your coaching days, something that stands out that says, I'm probably going to remember this. He talked about a rainstorm at the national tournament with a mud puddle in front of the keeper, in front of the goal. And so, like I said, he had 50 years. You have a good 10 years here. Anything that kind of stands out in either way, on either side?
I think as a player, I was introduced to playing at a very high level against some high-level players. It stood out to me the first time we ever played, which is Georgia Perimeter now, which used to be called the Cab College.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
We were playing against them in Atlanta, and you know, I always thought to myself, you know, I want to go pro. I want to go pro. Well, when you play up against an opposition like them, it really opens your eyes up to how good the players are out there, all over the place. They're all over. They're so good. That's one of my fondest memories, is playing at DeKalb. And then as a coach, obviously, I got my first 2 wins on this field as a 25-year-old with both my men and women's program. And you know, it was a lot of the foundation was built by Barry Kaplan, but I was there, his assistant. So I was actually in my 3rd year with these, you know, with the recruiting class and with the recruit pool of kids. So I think probably that those first wins as a head coach, and then obviously when we lost to Georgia Premier in 2004, we were ranked, and they were ranked. They were, I think, ranked 4th, and we were ranked 15th, and we lost in the last couple of minutes. But without question, that was, you know, as a 25-year-old young man, and you know, your women's team just lost the night before in a barn burner against Young Harris, was very strong back then in women's soccer. We barely lost by 1 goal to them, and then the next day we lost to Georgia Perimeter. It was like one of the worst moments ever, but it was a great moment, and it was a great year, and a lot of those kids I still keep up with and in contact with. So I think those would probably be the fondest memories for me.
Well, like you said, sometimes when you get a little distance on you, you start to realize, boy, that was a pretty special moment at the time, you know.
Yeah.
And one other thing I want to mention is, and Dr. Edith Smith, our athletic director, one of her first goals, and Scott Hemmings, who's now the baseball coach at Darton, we tried to do this back then. We just couldn't make it work. Up until probably 2 years ago, one person coached both teams. That's an enormous responsibility, and I know Coach Hemmings, again, tried to split them up. We couldn't make it work, and Dr. Smith was bound and determined to make it work, and so now we have a men's coach and a women's coach. But tell me about that, trying to do double duty with that. That's a tough animal.
Yeah, you know, you're always, you know, you bring in 52 kids and you're one person.
Correct.
You know, and I was 25 when we were doing it, when I did it, and cutting 2 fields as well at the time. But you know, I always tell people that it's difficult to change gears from going from a women's practice to a men's practice. There's no question about it. But I think the thing that made it a lot easier on me, being so young, was I was able to relate with the kids, and the guys and the girls that were our captains were essentially assistant coaches.
Correct.
And I've always been a player's coach, so you know, building those relationships with them, you know, they understood what the situation and the circumstances were. They wanted to come here and play. They laid it on the line, and I tell you, I don't regret it, because it was such a great experience being that young, being able to, you know, captain your own ship. You know, carrying 52 kids on a bus, and you're going wherever you're going, and you know, everything's on you. But I wouldn't change it for anything.
And I think that's one of the things that's hard for people to relate to nowadays, is that when I came up, I was a baseball coach here. I had 35 kids by myself, and Jimmy Gilbert did it ahead of us, and several of the other coaches, and obviously you were coaching 2 teams, but one thing it did, it taught you how to be a head coach. I mean, you jumped into the deep end of the water, and from then on, it was all smooth sailing. Now, that first couple of 3 or 4 weeks, and that was the scariest part for me, and being 25, I don't even know how you pulled it off, but when I was an assistant coach, I thought, well, I knew everything about everything. I was going to be a great head coach, and by and large, all of a sudden, you're the first one out there, and I remember my mouth being so dry I could hardly talk.
You know, I find it, you know, comical, because people think that, you know, you just got practice and you got games.
Yeah, correct.
Oh man, as a coach, there's a ton of other things that go into it, as far as travel and off the field incidences and discipline, and then
budgets and buying equipment and setting up hotels and like I said,
recruiting.
Recruiting, another thing, and it's trying to do two teams with one coach is an amazing thing. But again, I guess the thing about it is it does teach you. I mean, you cannot learn how to be a head coach until you're a head coach. I don't care what anybody says.
But I tell you, to have a great mentor, and Barry Kaplan, I was his assistant, and I was helping him, and it helped me learn what to do and what not to do in certain circumstances and cases. But also, when I became a head coach, the athletic director, Coach Gilbert, I never have had an incident where I walked in his office and he didn't have both ears ready to be able to advise me or to be able to encourage me to do something.
Correct.
And for me, that's an integral part of coaching development, is being able to turn to your immediate supervisor and him have an open door policy.
And he did. He sat in that one office. It's Kayla's office now, but he was there for forever and ever and ever. And
Yes,
like I said, and he's a friend of the program, and obviously we're trying to take advantage of him as much as we can, as far as that's concerned. And again, you're now at Darton State, and have had some really, really good teams over there, and we're obviously in the same region. And so one of the things we're trying to do with these videos is to reach out to former players and former, I just talked to Karen Berryman this morning. We're going to start interviewing professors who taught back in the day. And the one thing about this Andrew College Digital Network, obviously on the YouTube, is you don't have to come to Cuthbert anymore. You know what I'm saying? You can come here. We broadcast the game Sunday, women's soccer. First time we did one out here, soccer, and we had people from the UK and Scotland and Brazil and Australia watching, and even in South Florida, on a Sunday afternoon for an exhibition game. It's kind of hard to make that decision.
Sure.
They tuned in and watched the darn game, and so that's kind of what we're trying to do. And our biggest thing is to reach back out to the people who helped build this. And obviously, Jimmy is a big part of it. You are a big part of it. We're going to include the professors as part of that. One of the things that every college goes through ups and downs. You know what I mean? You peak and you go up and you go down, and you are obviously a part of this region and been a part of this region now for several years, and you've seen Andrew be up high at times and then down low at times. And as far as the potential for this place and this program, and again, as a rival coach, you know what I'm saying, and an alumni, what are your feelings on where we can go?
I think one of the toughest experiences of my life was in 2007 when I took the head job at Darton, and I had to compete against a lot of the guys that I had recruited.
Yeah, that is
a lot of the guys
hard.
that I had coached already. So that was hard. That was a hard game. And as always, I'm always pulling for Andrew College, except for 2 days out of the year.
Yeah.
2 days we got to see them, whether it's home or away, because it's always a good game. It matters not what the score is; it's always a good game. And Andrew College always conducts himself professionally. Win or lose, they conduct themselves professionally. And you got to bring your A game. And obviously, I support Andrew College. Every time they play somebody else, I always support them, want to see them doing well. I keep a rapport with them. But anytime you're going to face against an Andrew College Fighting Tiger team, you better be ready. You better be prepared, because they're going to be coached up. They're going to have quality players. They're going to be organized. They're going to be disciplined. So you got to be ready. They're always going to give you a good game.
And I think that's region-wide too. I think every coach in the region would say, hey, you got to be ready. You know what I'm saying? They may not always have everything that we may have, but they'll come out and compete.
They'll play.
And so, again, in kind of, I guess, closing or whatever, as an alumni and as a player, obviously you've talked about Andrew and what it's done for you, and again, we just kind of want to close with, how you think that Andrew kind of, like I said, kind of shaped you. I know we've gone over this ground a little bit, but obviously, and obviously you were, you're an alumni. You agreed to come over here. First thing you said, I'm here. So you could expound a little bit more.
Well, I'm a firm believer in always giving back, and this institution changed my life, both as an athlete and a young professional, and enlightened me in a lot of things and avenues and streets and ways to go about doing things. But I think probably one of the most inspiring things about Andrew College is that you're in a special place. There's not a whole lot of places left in America like Andrew College.
You're correct.
And I've been all over America. I've been everywhere. But I think just the interpersonal relationships amongst the student athletes as a whole, while you're here, with the interpersonal relationships with your faculty, your staff, everybody you run into on campus, by first name, and that's a remarkable experience, I think. And I think that being in a nurturing environment like Andrew College, it does help mold young men and women into better people.
And I think exactly, and that's the people we want to reach out to and say, hey, like I said, we're still here. You know what I mean? And like you said, there are very few of us left, and we think we're pretty special, and we're not for everybody. We'll be the first to admit that. but the folks who do come here, I think, leave out of here with a very good experience.
I think so.
A good chunk of them do, for
Yeah.
sure. Again, Bart Sasnett is the head coach at Darton State, but he, again, as he said, got his start here at Andrew College. Very well known in the junior college circles as a coach of the powerhouse Darton State College Cavaliers, and he'll be over here in a few more months to play Rudy Radiger's team, and we're definitely going to be up on top of the shed behind us up here filming the game. Right. And since we're only 45 minutes apart, we may ride over there with the camera and shoot that one over there and send it back out again too. And like I said, we want to thank Bart. Appreciate it so much for you guys coming over here. I want to thank George for coming out here and shooting the footage here. In a few minutes he'll take it back to our studio and edit it up and make us look as best as we can. You know, he ain't got a whole lot to work with, but we'll get started with that. And again, I want to thank you, Bart.
Yes,
it's been an
Appreciate
absolute pleasure.
Yes,
and we will see you in a few months.
Okay.
Thanks, Bart.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.